Now available in paperback and e-readers, E-Steam Cancel Vacation. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a social justice, social media mob looking to cancel her in this all-new E-Steam series adventure. Get E-Steam Cancel Vacation in paperback and e-readers today. One of my viewers wanted me to discuss Scott Adams' comments and the hypocrisy of his reasoning. Now, recently, Dilbert comic artist Scott Adams made a racist rant where he said that black people were a hate group and also said that white people needed to stay the hell away from black people because black people's situation with whites would never change. Now, Scott Adams' racist rant basically shows us the dysfunctional reasoning of white supremacists, and with white supremacy there is a lot of hypocrisy. Many of these white supremacists like Scott Adams will love to say that black people need to stay the hell away from them. However, it is always whites always going and looking to get attention from blacks. And that's exactly what the hypocrisy of Scott Adams' illogical reasoning is, because most black people didn't even care about Scott Adams or his Dilbert comic strip, and most black people weren't even aware that he even existed at this point, but he needed to go out here and call himself making this racist rant because white supremacists can't stay relevant unless there are black people to go out and react to their little temper tantrum racist rants. Because Scott Adams basically is a hypocrite talking about how black people need to stay the hell away from white people when it's usually white supremacists who go out here seeking the attention of blacks, because black communities have always been separated from most white communities, and that's since been the days of the Reconstruction, when black people had black towns like Black Wall Street and Rosewood, predominantly black towns, and those black towns were thriving and functioning until white supremacists decided to show up and destroy those towns, because those towns did not fit the ideals that the white supremacists had for their smooth world. Because seeing black people being living, breathing refutations of many of the narratives they like to push in their propaganda, in academia, and in their media, seeing black people basically being able to function at running their own businesses, running their own political system, running their own economy. This is what made these white supremacists extremely uncomfortable, because it basically proved them to be liars, one, and two, proved that black people could be competent, and three, proved that black people could be direct competition to them inside of the United States. And with the white supremacists feeling extremely insecure and inadequate about black people having the ability to live without them, they needed to foster a codependent relationship with black people. And this is why the white supremacist feels like they need to go on their little racist rants like Scott Adams does, because they need to feel some sort of adequate, because they know that if they had to deal with a real world of real black people, they could not be able to function in that world where they had to deal with actual direct competition that was just as competent as they were. And when I was listening to Scott Adams' comments, again, I just saw a small, pathetic man who was making, again, a racist rant in order to feel any sort of relevant, because he was becoming forgotten. Because who cares about Dilbert, the comic strip, these days? Who cares about Scott Adams, who seems to be still having an axe to grind because he couldn't become the next Matt Groening? Now, Matt Groening was a comic artist who created The Simpsons and went on to create a cultural icon that has gone on to this day. And I believe that Scott Adams is envious of the fact that Matt Groening got bigger than he did, and he wants to go out here and blame black people for his Dilbert strip failing because his show was on UPN, which was primarily a sci-fi network, and it really wasn't a black network. It's just that the black shows were more popular than the sci-fi, but he wants to blame black people for that failure. But the whole thing was, it was that his network, the UPN, was a weak network, and I believe he's got a lot of grudges. And again, the hypocrisy of his reasoning is that, oh, black people are this so-called hate group. No, we're not a hate group. We are citizens of this country, and we are citizens of this country, and we have no interest in any of these white folks. What we want is our equal rights as related to the tax dollars we pay in this country. We want to receive tangibles for our tax dollars, as related to roads, as related to schools, as related to housing, as related to libraries, and we also want tangibles in policies that will allow black people to be empowered as related to the representation we vote for. These are things that we were guaranteed under the 13th and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution, but guys like Scott Adams believe, oh, we need to go out here and help black people. No, we know that you don't want to help black people. What he wants to be is a great white savior who comes in and saves the poor black folk from their own savagery. And he wants to say that, oh, if it wasn't for white people, these black people wouldn't be the people, human that they are. This is the same type of talking point that white leftists and white right supporters make about black people. They basically want to make black people a second-class citizen, and they want to be able to say that they are the ones who cleaned up a black person like myself and made them into the ideal of whiteness. That's what your Scott Adams wants to do, and he's frustrated because black people don't need him to be the ideal that he has in his mind. No, we can imagine ourselves as something great without seeking out the approval and validation of a white person. We can make ourselves something great without getting the attention of a white person. We can make ourselves something great without seeking the approval of a white person. And that's what's got guys like Scott Adams burnt up. And it's got them so burnt up that they go into rants saying that, oh, those people who I tried to help are calling me a racist. Well, they call you a racist because you have a very paternalistic view of black people. You want to say that black people are the ones destroying neighborhoods and destroying the quality of life in neighborhoods, but you don't want to talk about, again, any of the white folks who are out here dealing the meth, going out here dealing the fentanyl, or any of the white people who are out here participating in all other sorts of criminal behavior. You don't want to talk about those white people, but you'll sit there and say that, oh, it's black people destroying neighborhoods. And he also went on to go say, oh, it's black people beating up white folks and non-black folks in videos. And I've been on social media for ever since about 2008, 2009, and most of the videos I have seen do not show a black person beating up anybody of any other race that much. I mean, most of the videos I see that where there's violence is usually a white person attacking either one of these Asians or sometimes black people. It's usually white people doing most of the violence, and usually if there's violence with black people in places like fast food restaurants and stuff like that, it's usually black people fighting other black people. But it's not like Scott Adams has, where he's sitting there talking about, oh, it's black people beating up white people and non-black people. I mean, he's buying into the same rhetoric that's being pushed as related to the whole anti-Asian narrative, which was proven to be a lie, because once people started looking at the actual videos, they started seeing it was mostly whites perpetrating these crimes. But Scott Adams, his reasoning is just completely twisted, but his reasoning is par for the course when it comes to white supremacists who live in a rose-colored, distorted reality, and inside of that distorted reality, their reasoning becomes completely illogical, and they want to make it like black people are the enemy. when in actuality, most black people have had nothing to do with whites because whites moved into their own places with white flight, and the ones that come to black communities are these white supremacists who are looking to get attention and drama going because many of them are mediocre, many of them don't have much success, and they're looking to get some attention for themselves because they can't go out here and get attention from other white people because other whites see them as the white supremacists that they are, and they see them as troublemakers and rabble-rousers and losers overall. So they want nothing to do with them at all. But you have guys like Scott Adams who, again, are irrelevant and basically desperate for attention. So what they look to do is start up some mess like he did, talking about all about black people being a hate group. Again, how can a race of people be a hate group? I mean, that just makes no logical sense. But the white supremacist logic is completely skewed and distorted. And again, they look to cause trouble for black people, and they look to make black people the scapegoat for all of the failures in their lives. And that's no difference here with Scott Adams. He's basically, his reasoning is just completely backwards and completely out there. He's looking to make black people the scapegoat for things, but when you look at his reasoning, it's just completely ridiculous. I mean, he's saying that black people, again, are the reason for a lot of things that you can just go out here and easily debunk with FBI statistics and other information. You can go out here and deconstruct Scott Adams and his just backwards reasoning and his comments and just see them for what they are, just anti-black racism, because anti-black racism is designed to to make black people feel like they're less than. And what Scott Adams wants to do is he wants to make black people less than because he's feeling inadequate about his own failed career as a comic artist. He went from being one of the biggest artists in the 90s to basically becoming irrelevant today, and he's just mad and he wants to just go out here and attack black people because he feels powerless about his own pathetic life. And because he feels powerless about his own pathetic life, he's going out here making this racist rant, trying to blame say that black people again are the big problem in this country. But the big problem black people have had are whites like him who want to come in and be the great white savior, want to be the god over black people, want to be the one who say that they cleaned us up. Well, we don't need you to clean us up, Scott Adams. We don't need you to do anything for us because you haven't ever done anything for us. And we don't need to hear from a clown like this. What we need to do when we see white supremacist clowns like this is we need to just go out here and cut them out of our business, cut them out of our social circles. Since they don't want to be around black people, then we will withdraw ourselves, withdraw our black dollars. And I've been doing that for over 30 years. I ain't ever cared about Dilbert ever since the 1990s. And we need to just leave this guy right where we find him, in the dumpsters of life, because Scott Adams, basically, he's sitting there with this white supremacist mindset, and he feels like, I'm comfortable enough to be the white supremacist that he is. So since he wants to be a white supremacist, he can let the white supremacists go out here and support him. And we, foundational black Americans, we now know that we have another enemy. So what we need to do is just cut our ties with this guy and let the white supremacists go out here and be the ones to go support his work. Now, this was a video requested by one of my viewers, and if you want to request a video, you can send a donation to the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my books on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spencerella trilogy, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online bookstores like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle, All About Marilyn. Learn all about the struggles of a faded former teen sitcom star in this absolutely fabulous 5-star screenplay. Get All About Marilyn in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com today.